Welcome everyone to the debut edition of the FightingGameNation.com podcast. I am Matt Black alongside Mikko Laurinen, and we are here to discuss Injustice: Gods Among Us, the new fighting game from Netherrealm, the creators of Mortal Kombat. It is an all DC Universe fighting game coming out April 16th to the United States and April 19th overseas. Today we are going to be discussing basically who we wish to see fill out the rest of the game, as well as hopefuls for the DLC downloadable content, which will be released after the game's release. Mikko, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. Very excited to be talking about this.
Yeah, it should be really good. So we'll kick it right off. If you look at the history of the Injustice coverage over the course of the past almost year now, in an interview, Hector Sanchez from Netherrealm stated that the 24 character slot that is being shown at a lot of the video game conventions and the comic book shows is actually just a decoy. That the roster size will be closer to the roster of Mortal Kombat 9. So the decoy shows 24, the Mortal Kombat 9's roster sat at 27 to 28, depending on who you ask and what version you had. So we could be looking at anywhere between a final roster of 24 to 28 for Injustice on disc, as well as the DLC coming out afterwards. Right now we have 20 characters, 100% confirmed, and we're about roughly a little over a month away from the game. So we're basically going to go down our top 10 characters that we hope end up either in the final build of the game or as actual DLC in the future. So, Mikko, we're going to kick it off with the first pick of the list, so take it away.
All right, the first pick was my suggestion, and it's Blue Beetle. Blue Beetle's really been getting attention across media with the major role in the ongoing Young Justice series, which I'm really sorry that it's ending soon, but he had a good run, and he was a very central character, especially in the second season. He was also had a fairly big role in Batman Brave and the Bold a year or two ago. And I believe right when the New 52 line launched, he had his own series going. So I think that he's one of those characters that DC would really like them to include.
Well, I'll be the first to admit I don't know a whole lot about the Blue Beetle character in general, but I've definitely seen on a lot of the Mortal Kombat / Injustice community boards that he seems to be quite a popular choice that people would be happy to have as an inclusion to the game. And just, heck, as long as he plays well, I'm all for an inclusion of just about anybody. So if he's a popular fan choice, he should definitely end up on the roster, whether he be DLC or an on-disc character.
Yeah, I could really see them including him. I'd probably expect keep away projectiles, because that's a lot of what his power suit can do is just shoot shit. So,
well, the question I have about the entire roster is, every single character that has been shown so far has had some semblance of being shown in either the prequel comic book or the story mode cinematics that we've seen online right now. So I'm wondering if everybody on disc will play some form in the actual story mode, whereas some of the downloadable content characters might not have anything to do with the actual story mode, but are just DC characters that NetherRealm wanted to add in, or the DC thought it would be cool to include them, but they didn't really have any part in the actual Injustice storyline overall.
Yeah, that would make sense, that the ones that they couldn't fit into the story would be the ones that are added later.
Yeah.
And so far, Blue Beetle has not been shown in anything, obviously. This is just a wish. But, yeah, I'm not sure I'd consider him as like a big-name player in terms of Superman and Batman and most of the core Justice League. So I'm not surprised that he hasn't, even if he was in the story, that he'd be in some very small role in the grand picture. But, yeah, I'm kind of figuring more likely that he'll be DLC.
Fair enough.
If that's the rule that non-storyline.
No, it's no rule. It's just
yeah, but like it's a theory.
Yeah, exactly. Number 2 on our list would be Satana. who is easily a very popular choice among the community right now. There's not a whole lot of magic being shown in Injustice right now, and with Superman acting the way he is in the prequel comics, you kind of think Batman would want to bring in somebody that specialized in magic in order to try and turn the tides in the favor of the insurgency against Superman's group. So,
yeah, the most logical choice for that role would have been Dr. Fate, but he has been seen in the background of a level, maybe just his outfit, but still, so logic would dictate that he's not going to be playable, so...
Well, it almost looks like Dr. Fate has been captured.
Yeah, you mentioned that. That's an interesting idea that Superman would be, like, putting these superheroes that might be a risk to him into, like, a prison-y thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would make sense. And, yeah, Zatanna is not, like, the biggest name player. So it would kind of make sense that she would slip through the cracks. She wouldn't be the first one that Superman would go after when he goes, oh shit, magic can totally affect me. I should probably do something about that.
Yeah, I would definitely imagine her to be a distance character as well. I would believe a lot of her projectile items and stuff like that would be working to keep distance from her opponents and stuff like that. But I think it would work. I think it would work well.
Yeah, I think she has a lot of potential for doing stuff because, magic, it's a really flexible tool.
Yeah, exactly. And I definitely think the game is extremely lacking magic character class right now. So I really hope we get a couple of those by the time the roster ends up panning itself out.
Absolutely. Okay, I think we're going to move to the next one, which was another suggestion of yours, I believe. Black Canary.
Yeah, there's a lot of brawling in this game, and at the end of the day, Black Canary can brawl with the best of them. If you take a look at her abilities, she actually borrows a lot from Sindel from the Mortal Kombat series, is the echo of the voice and stuff like that. You'd think that Boone would enjoy incorporating heroes and villains into this game that are already using powers and abilities that he's used to programming for in the Mortal Kombat franchise.
That absolutely makes sense. And like I think I mentioned to you that I'm not sure how many moves you can get out of the voice, but you would only need a few. And again, Sindel already has those, so it would make sense for him to like, and that's stuff that they've already tested out in Mortal Kombat 9, so they know they can work it.
Oh yeah,
and it's not a broken mechanism.
Oh, of course not. And I mean, at the end of the day, when Black Canary's up close anyway, she's gonna brawl with anybody.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, you've got the screaming stuff at a distance, and you've got if you're up close, you can brawl, and you can even use the screaming thing to knock the character back, stuff like that. I mean, there's definitely potential there for that character. So I definitely see no reason why she shouldn't be included, if nothing else, to be as DLC.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, again, she's a character with a decent fan base, in addition to being a logical choice. So, yeah, I would definitely want to see a Black Canary in if possible.
It would be cool. Next pick is someone who might be as good as in right now. One of your selections, actually, Raven. We put this list together a couple weeks ago before we decided to sit down and record this podcast. But the leaked achievement list that has come out for Injustice has an achievement picture that very much looks to reveal that not only Raven, but Killer Frost might both be included in Injustice as well. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm very excited. Killer Frost was my pick for, I basically, again, on the Ed Boon thing, like, there would be a Frost character in the game, because freaking Sub-Zero, he's been their, poster boy. And there are so many in DC. So I just looked at the ones that I know and was like, which one would I like to see in? And Killer Frost was my pick for the Frost villain of the game. So I'm pretty psyched that she's likely to be in. And yeah, like you mentioned, we made the list before any of this stuff leaked out, so I picked Raven then because she was easily one of my favorites from Teen Titans, the animated show. I'm not too familiar with the comics, but yeah, and again, this goes back to the whole needing magic characters, because basically she uses magic, and I'd say her two prime abilities that, again, are kind of Mortal Kombat-y are telekinesis, which they have done with Kenshi.
True.
So they already have ideas for moves that they could have her do there. And I'm not sure if we call it teleportation, but basically a Mortal Kombat style teleportation move would be very much something I could see her doing. And I don't think I've seen any of the current characters do any teleportation moves, so hard to say if they want to include those, because I always kind of felt in Mortal Kombat those were some of the cheaper stuff, especially against people who were new. But if they go to the route of wanting to include that, I think Raven would be a logical choice. And again, she was in that achievement logo, and she's had a pretty big role in the Injustice. Was the issue 7?
It was either 7 or 8. It might have been issue 8, actually.
Might have been 8. Well, either way. So she's made an appearance in that. So it's fairly certain that she's going to be in, and I'm glad.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely potential. I mean, there's such a small number of female heroes and villains in the game right now. It certainly wouldn't hurt to round out the rest of the roster in some DLC by bringing in some of the female heroes and villains from the DC universe. It just makes sense at this point. But,
I agree, and I think our list reflects that.
Yeah, but to take away from the female side of things, we bring on to the next pick, which is definitely from your side of things, and someone who Ed Boon has been teasing an awful lot over the past, maybe 6 or 8 months now, Lobo, first he's not in, then he might be DLC, and now he might be in again, and I don't know what's going on with Lobo, man, but maybe you can give the rundown.
Yeah, Ed Boon clearly knows that Lobo has fans. Lobo is an intergalactic bounty hunter who rides around space on a space motorcycle, wielding a huge hook at the end of a chain. I mean, this guy is seriously badass, so I don't wonder why everybody's going like he needs to be in, because I think he would be an awesome character. Depending a bit on the story and writers, because power levels are always fluctuating, but he's sometimes gone like punch for punch with Superman, so I could definitely see him getting it. Although I believe in the New 52 he hasn't seen very good use. He was in like a really badly done Deathstroke story or something, but it's not like the game relies completely on the new current situation, so I think it would be a very good pick, and a lot of people would be interested in playing him.
I don't know how far of a stretch this is, because I'll admit, just like Blue Beetle, I don't know a whole lot about Lobo, but as Deadpool is kind of like a copy of Deathstroke, could you go as far to say that Lobo is almost like DC's version of Ghost Rider?
I wouldn't go there in terms of personality. Like, in terms of the look, yeah, I could see that they might have been inspired by the whole, bicycling and chain usage, but not in terms of personality, because he's more of a wisecracker and a really anti-hero. I mean, we're talking about, like, most of the time I wouldn't call him a hero, but sometimes in stories he just ends up doing something good. So
you don't think Johnny Blaze is a smart-ass anti-hero?
I don't think to this. He gets too serious when he goes Ghost Rider from the stories I've read, but again, that always depends on the writer, so.
True enough.
I might have just ended up with those super serious stories.
I'm just saying. Well, there's some similarities. I'm not.
Definitely.
I'm not looking to draw any heat from Lobo fans or anything, but I definitely just going off of what I've heard about him and what I've seen, I definitely I sense some similarities between the Lobo character and Ghost Rider. So
you might be onto something. But yeah, I definitely think he could be a strong pick. Alright. So, next pick was one of our mutual ones, Power Girl.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I was one that really wanted to see both Power Girl and Supergirl make the game because I thought the battles that you could have between these two would be really cool in video game form. I mean, it's been done in the comics a couple times, but neither of these characters have really been playable in a fighting game before. So I thought it would have been neat to have those two be able to fight each other, but Ed Boon has confirmed, unfortunately, that Supergirl will not be included in Injustice at all. And that's disappointing, but, I understand, as Ed actually told me on Twitter, you can't get everybody. So, if we can't get Supergirl, Power Girl did win his unofficial poll between Power Girl, Supergirl, and Batgirl some months back on his Twitter account in almost a landslide victory. So I'm
not terribly surprised because Power Girl has always struck me as a fan favorite. Like, the truly geeky ones who know more about her than, she's the one with the big boobs, are really like her because she's had some really great stories in the comics and she's an intriguing character.
Yeah, I hope to see her. I mean, even if we don't get her as part of the story, I would love to see her in as DLC. I think she would be a great overall addition to the game.
Yeah, definitely. And, popularity is popularity, and I know she's got it, so. Also, the one thing that came to my mind when we were discussing Supergirl and Power Girl being in, that of course they have the Kryptonian power set.
Sure.
So basically what they can do, Superman can do. But there are so many ways to utilize their powers that there would easily be room for at least one or two other Kryptonians in the roster without getting repetitious in terms of actual mechanics. I think in the Sinestro Superman fight, we saw Superman do his freezing breath as a very close range thing. But you could use that as a ground freezing thing, like Sub-Zero has done in some versions.
Yeah, I'm not a real big fan of the people who claim, just because one character fights this way that somebody else shouldn't be in. There were a lot of naysayers that said Sinestro shouldn't be in because him and Green Lantern both use power rings. But I mean, they both use power rings, but they can totally make their movesets completely different. And just because they all are Kryptonian power based doesn't mean that the characters could not play differently from each other. I think that's a very close-minded opinion to have as to why somebody should or shouldn't be in the game.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, but I can see where the people are coming from, but if you look at the material we now have of Sinestro and Hal Jordan, you can see that they have very different moves. And but I remember a lot of people going it's going to be the same, but no, especially in that case because they basically have an infinite amount of possibilities how to use the power. So Netherrealm has basically showed that it can be done. Yeah, we could definitely work it with at least one other Kryptonian.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree. Next person on our list is somebody who a lot of people haven't been talking about, but I think in terms of the way Mortal Kombat has done things over the year would be one of the most perfect characters that they could throw in here, and that would be Clayface. I think he could be like the Shane Sun-like character, the shape shift into any of the characters in the game, and do their powers and abilities and stuff like that. And I think NetherRealm can make a really badass looking Clayface. I mean, if they were able to make Aquaman badass, I mean, I can only imagine what they could do with a Clayface type character in Injustice. I think that would be pretty awesome.
I agree. That would be very mechanically interesting to have a Mokujin in the game, especially if he had changed movesets between rounds. Granted, he's a Batman villain, and we have a lot of Batman characters in already, But like you mentioned, that's just a great option mechanically to have one like, okay, I'm really good with everybody, just come at me, bro.
Yeah, I think it would be really cool. I mean, obviously you'd start as the Clayface character and he would have his own moveset, but you would be able to change into other characters throughout the fight, just like Shane Sun does. I think he would be an awesome addition to the game. Even if he's not playable, he would be a cool, like, Goro type boss. You know what I mean? As someone you get to that point, I mean, we all question at this point how, if you're reading the prequel comics, and if you haven't, I'm not going to give out any spoilers, but a lot of people question after reading them how Joker still has a part in Injustice. Maybe it has something to do with Clayface. Clayface had some interactions with the Joker in Arkham City. Yeah, I mean, they're both done by Warner Brothers. I know that's probably a stretch, but you never know. So
it's definitely a possibility, and at least if you want to look at again like classic fighting game stuff, he would be good for a mirror match in the story mode.
Yep. Oh yeah, no doubt. I think the possibilities of Clayface as a character in the game, Batman villain or not, is tremendous. I really don't get the Batman argument that's going online right now, that there's too many Batman characters in the game. At the end of the day, the game is taking, from what we've seen, is for the most part is taking place in Gotham City, in Metropolis. So why shouldn't there be a bunch of Batman characters in the game? At the end of the day, that just makes sense. And whether you love Batman or you hate him, Batman as a franchise has probably the most recognizable group of characters in DC Comics.
Oh yeah, the reason why there are so many characters in already and why a lot would be interesting options is because it's such a powerful franchise and so popular. And those kind of go hand in hand because a lot of the villains, a lot of the supporting casts are really good characters. So I don't wonder why people like them. But I do kind of get that some people are like, it's supposed to be a DC game, not a Batman game. But I don't think
at the end of the day, you have to appeal to the mass audience.
That is true.
And just like I consider myself a comic book guy, and I've been reading comics for a good portion of my life, but I don't know who Blue Beetle is. And I'm really not doing that to get a heat from like the online DC community that's going to be up in arms over that fact. But
you can't know every single character.
I, as the common comic book guy, I have no clue who Blue Beetle is. I would much rather see a recognizable roster of people that I know, even if I don't want to use them, instead of like side characters that I've never heard of before. So
it's a fair argument.
The inclusion of Batman characters, honestly, it just makes sense. It's name recognition value for the game long term. Everybody knows the Batman heroes and villains for the most part, at least the iconic ones anyway. So I really can't see a big deal about any of them being included that have already been announced, or anyone that could be announced in the future. I think the only one I'd put an argument on is I'd be a little annoyed if Robin got in the game, since we already have a Nightwing.
Some people say that they'd want Robin, especially the Damian Wayne one in, but I gotta agree, like, how different is he really gonna be from Nightwing if they did include him? I don't know.
I'm sure they'd figure out a way to make him different. I just think.
Well,
Robin,
yeah, again,
I just think Robin and Nightwing in the same game would be in a little bit of overkill. That's all.
It might be. It's like, yeah. So yeah, I think we're good to move to the next one. And he is the Martian Manhunter, one of the founding members, I believe, of Justice League, depending a bit on where, I think. But anyway.
I believe he's really the only main member of the Justice League that is yet to be included in the game.
Yeah, and a lot of people are going like, why isn't he there? He should be there. And it's kind of hard to argue. Why the heck isn't he there?
Man, I don't know, man.
I would have expected him to be in before Aquaman. And I'm not an Aquaman hater. To all the comic book fans are getting ready to flame me about that. I actually like Aquaman, and I know he's not the guy from Super Friends or whatever. But yeah, Martian Manhunter has been really central in a lot of incarnations of the Justice League. So very surprised if he doesn't make it in, but Well, he's definitely on our wish list.
Yeah, I mean, even if he's not a part of the Injustice story, which they certainly haven't shown him in the prequel comics yet, it would still be nice, to have him as a DLC character to just round out the Justice League for the most part, because everybody else that's anybody has already been announced.
Yeah, pretty much.
So there's a lot of people out there on the community sites that I visit that are not too pleased with the fact that Martian Manhunter is currently missing in action. So I definitely hope to see him announced either to round out the roster or a future DLC or something like that. I mean, Boone even ran an unofficial DLC poll on his Twitter account a couple weeks ago with Martian Manhunter as one of the options, and from what I could see, it seemed like he was running away with it. So,
yeah, I definitely think he would be one of those top picks of who they should, from like a business point of view, who you should include because people would want him. And looking at like game mechanics, I think he has a lot of potential to be really interesting with his abilities to shapeshift and not sure what the correct term here is, to change his density, which could be used for a lot of interesting stuff. For the classic reaching into his opponent's chest and crushing their heart thing that the characters that can change their density always threaten people with. And again, like a teleportation move where he just slides through the floor and comes up behind the enemy. It's like, I think he would have a lot of potential as like a mechanical character as well as, a character, because people want him.
no, I agree. Hopefully we end up seeing him in one form or the other. We're going back to the Batman with our next pick, who I personally have thought for months would be an awesome addition to this game, in Poison Ivy, to not only round out the Gotham City Sirens with Harley Quinn and Catwoman, but I would just imagine that her plant abilities that they could use would be awesome. I mean, having stuff rise out of the ground to grab the people, or shoot the vine out and grab something and bring them in, almost like a Scorpion type
cool
character. I think there's a lot of potential that they could have done with Poison Ivy that might go untapped, and it's a real shame because I think she would have been a character that was right up Netherrealm's alley to create and put in this game, and I think she could have been potentially a lot of fun to play as.
I would absolutely agree. Like, as we've seen in Mortal Kombat, they like the ladies. So I'm actually surprised that there aren't more female characters on the roster, but I guess they focused on the essentials for the most part. But yeah, Ivy would definitely be one of those characters that has a lot of potential for where she can go with her abilities.
Yeah, and I mean, just because there's not a lot of women on the roster right now doesn't mean by the time it's not all said and done that they're not a little more even than they are right now. I'm not saying that they're going to be even female and male roster, because it's not even going to be close, but
yeah,
I definitely see more female announcements in the future just to enlarge the size of the roster that they have right now.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Boone mentioned, like, not all the women have been revealed, although, as we mentioned, Killer Frost and Raven are both
seems to be
more or less certain. So
they seem to be locked at this point.
So he could have just been talking about them, but maybe not.
We will see.
And speaking of more ladies into the game, our last pick is the Sorceress Cersei.
And I say, why not?
Yeah.
Wonder Woman doesn't have a villain in the game yet. Anybody who read Injustice #9 that just came out this week, you could definitely make a case that Ares might be showing up as a character to be Wonder Woman's counterpart in the game instead of Cersei. But honestly, I couldn't see anything wrong with either character being in. I mean, even Cheetah has appeared in the comics already. I mean, there's a lot of potential for Wonder Woman villains to pop up in Injustice. They just haven't been announced and or confirmed as to happening yet. There were some video game magazines that said that they saw Ares in some cutscenes in early gameplay footage that they were shown in the Injustice storyline, but we're still actually waiting on to hear if he's going to be just an inclusion in the story or a playable character or maybe even a boss Shao Kahn like final character, because we really still don't know who's supposed to be who's the end game. We don't know that yet.
Yeah,
so
we're kind of assuming that there is a boss, because that's just fighting game tradition.
Well, that's the Netherrealm way. There's always some big guy at the end that's normally not playable, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was Ares, because
it's a distinct possibility, because like there's so much strife and what you could consider warfare going on. Maybe that builds his power up, and that's why, despite the events of the latest issue, he would be a major threat.
Well, it's almost process of elimination, because it can't be Darkseid, because he's a transition stage character.
Yeah,
and anybody who's been anybody who's been shown as a transition stage character is not playable, and they sure as heck ain't gonna be a main boss in the game. Why would they just be hanging out in the stage transition if they're gonna be the main boss? It can't be Bane, because Bane's playable. It can't be Doomsday, because Doomsday's playable. So, I mean, it's process of elimination. It's gotta be, it's gotta be a big dude. It's got, all the Mortal Kombat bosses, they were big, except for Shang Tsung in the first game. I mean, all of the, Mortal Kombats after, the boss was, big and menacing and, more often than not was Shao Kahn, ready to break your head open with a sledgehammer. So, I wouldn't be surprised to see Cersei as being playable and Ares is ended up being the final boss in Injustice. But I mean,
it's distinctly possible. I think like the point of this last choice is basically we want a Wonder Woman villain,
pretty much,
so that she'd have somebody to feud with.
Yeah, regardless of who they pick, it was Cersei.
Yeah,
Cheetah,
like Cersei
Ares,
is our favorite pick, but we would definitely take even Ares. We probably at the bottom of these three, but like Cersei, Ares, or Cheetah.
Well, they definitely set up Ares as being extremely important in Injustice number 9. I
definitely
don't think we've seen the last of him anytime soon.
Yeah, it's unlikely they just put an entire issue into him and then just forget about him, or put him in the background or something like that. It wouldn't make much sense to me.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think there's a lot of exciting potential left, with who we can see be announced over the course of the next couple weeks. I mean, the game is literally just over a month away. Yeah, both for the United States and for the overseas territory. So people are going to get to play this game soon. I'm really hoping we get a demo. They've definitely not rolled out one. Ed Boon has seemingly been hopeful on his Twitter account that we might end up with a demo. So we've got a couple weeks left for that to happen. I see big things for Injustice this year from the fighting game community. I think it's going to be a big hit, and hopefully it sparks some interest in fighting games in general going forward, because they seem to be on a little steady line right now.
Yeah, they had a really big rise a couple years back, and it's been steadying out a bit, but like looking at the releases that we know this year, I think Injustice might be the biggest one.
For now, I mean,
at least for now, unless something else pops up. But
I mean, we don't know what's going to happen in E3. I mean, anything can happen. But I mean,
that is true. But as things stand, it seems to be the biggest one this year, and that kind of says something maybe about this year being not the hottest year for fighters. But you know what? Nobody knows what the future brings. Like before Street Fighter 4 came out, who the heck was like really all about fighting games?
Well, it's sad. I've been playing fighting games since I was a kid, and it was disappointing to see the lack of fighting games that were on the market until Street Fighter 4 came back and basically re-energized the fighting game genre in the community again. So I'm hoping Injustice can come out and do the same thing. They've done a lot of things with the gameplay that they've said that could really, merge the NetherRealm and the Capcom fans under the same roof.
That's something that I had a little bit of a problem with Mortal Kombat 9, though it's an awesome game. But like, I'm just more used to the Capcom way of how games are controlled and how they handle. But we will see. I'm seriously excited about Injustice. I think it has the potential to be a really big deal.
Yeah, I certainly hope so, and I hope everybody that's listening feels the same way. It's definitely an early contender for Fighting Game of the Year. Thanks for listening. This was the first ever FightingGameNation.com podcast, and hopefully we'll get to do more in the future. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time.
Take care, everybody.